My dear old fruits, welcome to the broadcast and greetings from my salon. The headlines have been scornful, the reviews have been scathing, and the verdict, absolutely brutal. Boy oh boy, are we going to have some fun today. My dears, I'm just popping in during the editing. I've been watching this video back and I know there's some sound distortion when I project my voice, which is very annoying. Got rid of some of the echo by using a lavalier microphone, but it seems it's too close for me to project. Problems. I'll sort it out in future, but I hope you can bear with me today while there's a little bit of distortion. It's over for her. Many people are saying, by the way, that she stole elements of my own template from my tip jar corner segments, my philosophy of life regarding the small pleasures, turning the mundane into magic, that alchemy that I speak of so very often. That alchemy, my philosophy, has been vulgarized, plagiarized and bastardized by that Duchess. And during this whole excursion into Netflix, we are seeing a lot of Jekyll, aren't we, my dear? Oh, the Jekyll side is out in force. It truly is. But we know that Hyde lurks in the corners and the deep, dark recesses of the Duchess's mind. This domestic Duchess. Actually, it brings to mind an interview that I saw with a British celebrity. It was a presenter of sorts. It might have been Fern Cotton or Davina McCall or Olivia Attwood. It was one of those. And they were talking about their experiences with other people in the showbiz industry. And she was saying, this gal, that it was the very nicest, fluffiest ones, the ones that come across as sunshine and rainbows on camera, those in the industry that surprised her the most. She said, they are the darkest ones, without fail. Isn't that very interesting? And that's what sprang to mind, seeing all of the froth and bubble coming from Meghan's Jekyll side. She's going to draw you in with the charm and look like the innocent flower. The innocent rose would be the serpent underneath it. Well, it was me that showed you my milk and honey recipe with nutmeg, wasn't it? My grated nutmeg. Do you remember that? I showed you that months ago. And in episode 1, we have Nutty Meg grating on our nerves and dripping honey in her very first scene. So something else she's plagiarized from me. And she turned up, didn't she, in her helmet and her tendrils, looking like an astronaut on the day of the Triffids, which was quite a look to try and pull off. She didn't pull it off. And actually, she got someone else in to prise open the hive. Take note, she says, there's only room for one queen bee in this hive, and that's me, Duchess Meghan. And she's whispering away in that sort of croaky tombre of hers. And she admits, by the way, to using someone else's hive for this series, someone else's home, which is quite peculiar, isn't it? It's well, her friend's home, one of her rich friends that she's using for all these episodes, and she's just the cuckoo in the nest. And I just find that very weird. It's not as if she doesn't have the space in her own gaff, is it? Why couldn't she use her own chateau instead of invading other people's? Because it brings an air of inauthenticity to the whole charade, doesn't it, my dear? Skipping about between homes with her fruit baskets. Well, enter Daniel Martin, her friend Daniel, you know, the gay bestie and glam squad member, and she is instructing us how she's going to prep the guest room for Daniel. What does one prepare for a gay bestie? Well, of course, bath salts, bath crystals. Watch it. She feels and she looks totally out of place. Did you notice this? And totally out of depth as the show's host. And all this plucky incidental music that keeps being thrown into the mix, all this sort of soul music, doesn't make up for it. No, it's not fooling us. And you can find better show hosts on YouTube, present company, of course, and hundreds of others, hundreds of thousands of others, in fact, do a better job. She likes to make a tea bag for the bath, she tells us. She loves her tea bags. And the kids love Uncle Daniel. They love their Uncle Daniel. And as for the future King William V, well, he's been replaced by a member of Meghan's glam squad as uncle. Isn't that something? Well, that could be handbags at dawn, because of course that will be competition for another one of the kids' uncles, Uncle Tyler. What about poor Uncle Tyler? Oh, handbags at dawn it's going to be, isn't it? Two queens at dusk, fighting for the affection of the young prince and princesses of Sussex. At the Harkles, it's like a rerun of My Two Dads. She has a trug of goodies for the bath. She loves her baskets and her trugs. She's so bountiful, isn't she, what she rocks up with? Probably an anal douche in there as well. Oh no, that one's for Mr. Scobie. Well, she makes truffle popcorn. Pop, pop, pop. You can't get that in the Odeon these days, can you, my dear? The Picture Palace, you can't get that sort of posh popcorn, so, oh, that's very impressive. And 10 minutes in, she eats some pretzels. She twists herself into one as well, getting through this extravaganza. Geez Louise, and I will tell you that I did nearly fall asleep on several occasions, and not because of her relaxing mellifluous tones, because it was shit. You always want to be conscious if someone has a nut allergy, she tells us. Well, I'm sure Uncle Daniel loves his nuts. Oh, he's head over heels for nuts. And he's friends with one as well. They don't call her nutmeg for nothing. And then we are furnished with the recipes for single skillet spaghetti. And this time she wears an updo and mermaid curls in her ponytail and a parachute. Did you see that? What on earth is she thinking, my dear? Entirely impractical. Wizard sleeves dripping all down into her casseroles. What on earth did she think that she was going to do with that outfit while she was cooking? What a fire hazard. And have you noticed the inane conversation that she has? Totally inane. It warmed up a little bit throughout the episode as it went on and on. She got a bit more comfortable in front of the camera. But oh, the inanity of so much of the banter between her and her crew. And most of it is all revolving about how great Meghan is. Oh, you're fantastic, you're wonderful, you're marvellous. And my nose is turning brown. Maybe you've been bronzing me up. Maybe you've been using your bronzer on my nose, or maybe I've been sniffing around something else that I shouldn't. Oh, how wonderful she is, the Grand Duchess. And Mr. Martin was the same, how wonderful she is, and how kind she was. You know, even back in the day when we worked on Suits together, you were bringing me coffee and offering coffee to me. Wow, wow, you'd think that she'd been bringing and offering gifts of gold, frankincense and myrrh rather than a few coffee beans, but apparently you bring someone a latte and you're one of the magi. And all of this effort results in a small heap of spaghetti and a few leaves. And did you notice they made the editing decision to put a sort of white square frame on some of the segments just to add interest, just to sort of distract you from the fact that there was absolutely nothing there of substance. So, oh, we'll just put in a little white frame for a few seconds and then remove it because that looks so pretty. Oh, I expect they're just elevating the scene, as Meghan loves to do. Well, it becomes very clear very quickly that she is once again using her friends as a device or a foil to help things along, or try to do so, because she doesn't have the charisma. She doesn't have the charisma to lead as host, does she? And she's all bashful in front of the camera. She can't even talk to camera as I'm doing to you now. So then they have to use the device of she's talking to the crew and she's talking to the directors to try and coax something watchable out of her. Well, she's only watchable in a sort of rubbernecking car crash way, isn't she, my dear? Then she goes on to make candles. And she explains the making of candles as if she is unravelling Pythagoras' theorem. It's quite something. Harry would be bored stiff, wouldn't he? And I'm not talking about his little todger, but he would be bored rigid with these things that she gets up to and watching the episodes. Do you think that he had to sit through the whole 8 of them? Must have been tearing his hair out. Maybe that explains the dandelion affair. And like teenagers they all are, like teenagers, and it boils my piss. Then she went on to start making naked cake, as it was called. I really don't want to think about her cakes, naked or otherwise, but it was layered with buttercream. It actually put me in mind of Victoria Sponge. Perhaps it was Victoria Sponge, but she couldn't bring herself to say it because that would be a queen of our realm. Well, she, of course, is credited as executive producer. I'm an executive, don't you know, and I'm going to put myself first in the credits Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, executive producer. Her only produce is the stuff that's used as compost for her vegetables. Manure, manure, my dears. Episode 2 is Welcome to the Party, and Mindy's coming. Mindy's coming! Oh, it's Dork and Mindy. Wonderful. But I've got nothing in, she tells us. Oh, the alarm, and she clutches her pearls. I've got nothing in for dear Mindy. Well, that's unlikely, isn't it, my dear, because it's a film set, and you've been up since the crack of dawn, getting your glam done, and preparing for this show. But apparently I've got nothing in. We don't buy it. We don't buy it, my dear. And then she tells us, this Princess of the United Kingdom, my bacon brings all the boys to the yard. Really? Really? I'm not peeing on your leg. This is what she tells us. The wife of a prince, my bacon brings all the boys to the yard, with a little grin on her face. Well, he did tell us, didn't he? What's your favourite smell, Harry? My wife. My wife. Well, now you know what she smells of, bacon. And he can't resist a bit of that butty, that bacon butty. Well, it's Harry that's bringing home the bacon, isn't it? He's the one that's been out there merching spare and... What else did he do? Merching spare and merching spare. He's the one that's been bringing home the bacon. She's been bringing home a headache. She says, I'm just going to grab my bacon. Well, I hope you shaved the rinds off, dear. Her bestie, Mindy, pops in for jam talk, because it's all about jam, isn't it? Jam is my jam. I wonder what her fee was, our Mindy and all of these celebrity chums. I wonder what their fees were. Maybe that's where the budget went, but I'm sure it was spent well. The jam, oh, the jam talk is riveting. And the guests continue to be used as a prop to boost and elevate the Duchess. And Mindy keeps marvelling and marvelling at Meghan. You made a balloon arch? Ah, Einstein. Eat your heart out. Well, if she can make Archie balloon, then she can make a balloon arch. Your outfit is wonderful, she tells Meghan. Meghan tells us I was a latchkey kid. She thinks she was Artful Dodger or something out of a Dickensian novel. I grew up watching Jeopardy and eating Jack in the Box. Oh, you forgot about the Sizzler, Meghan. You forgot about the Sizzler this time, didn't you? In your impoverished childhood. It's so funny, Mindy, that you keep saying Meghan Markle. You keep calling me Meghan Markle. That's not my name. You know that I'm Sussex now. Yes, I am. I'm going to claim that royal gift. Our family name means so much. Now, a lot of this has been made in social media and the media and beyond. I'm not quite sure why people are surprised or what the quiz is, because it is her family name. She does have the right to use the name Sussex, sadly, and she is right to use it, especially on a colloquial level. Now, I understand that Mountbatten Windsor was used in the early days, particularly for the children, before the king ascended to the throne. They were Master Archie Mountbatten Windsor and Miss Lilibet Mountbatten Windsor. But that changed with the sovereign, and they took the decision to change over to Sussex. But even if they hadn't done that, it would have been totally in keeping with the protocols of this nation to be known as Meghan Sussex, just as Sarah York, Catherine Cambridge. It's a well-used contraction, a ubiquitous format for those of nobility or titles, minor and major, up and down the kingdom. It's nothing outrageous, and that's why I'll often refer to her as Meghan Sussex. Neither she or Harry really have a surname. We've been through this a million times, but they don't really have a surname, but they can choose how they are going to style themselves privately for matters legal, just as William and Harry coming through. When William was with the RAF was William Wales. Harry, I think at Eton, was Harry Wales, even though that wasn't strictly their surname. Do you understand? These amendments are made for royalty. The vulgarity, of course, is that the dukedom was a gift of the late Queen's to Harry. He was created Sussex upon his marriage, and therefore Meghan became the Duchess of Sussex. And in my opinion, that gift should have been returned when he left the royal family. But of course he was never going to do that. He was never going to do that. The good thing, of course, is that if she hadn't have received that title due to Harry's gift, then she might have had the idea to go by Princess. As a Princess of the United Kingdom, we would have had Princess Henry of Wales, so we've got to be grateful for small mercies, haven't we, and suck it up. She then briefly goes on to the subject of nasturtiums, and that rankled me a little bit because they're one of my favourite flowers, as I've shared with you before, and she pronounced it nasturtiums. Apparently friendship for Meghan involves endless billing and cooing with each other in a very childish manner, and lots of insincere ego-stroking. That's what friendship is for them. And it's intolerable, because she's got to be getting a bus pass through in a few years, isn't she, my dears, and her pension in a few short years. And they're still billing and cooing in this manner. Then there was some discussion over the word ladybug, as it's said in America and the States, or ladybird, as we say it here in the kingdom. Well, either is completely valid, whatever you've grown up with. They make the point that this particular insect is not a bird, so why do we call it ladybird, as Harry does? Well, by your logic, Meghan, then they aren't all ladies either, are they? Ladybirds or ladybugs can be male or female. Not trans, as far as I'm aware, but they can come in both sexes, so why would you cast them all as ladies if we're going to be so pernickety over that matter? Then we are treated to a close-up of fresh mint tea, and she has the inspired idea to suggest using fresh mint to conjure up this tea. You can do this on a budget, she tells us. Oh, everything you see here you can do on a budget. Oh, that's so kind, isn't it? Thank you, Duchess Meghan, from the peasants and the paupers. Episode 3 is Two Kids from LA. And Roy's coming over, she tells us. Roy's coming over, and he loves donuts. He loves donuts. And I got the impression that he wouldn't have minded a bit of Meghan's donut. It's the little things that give me a lot of pleasure, she says. And I bet Harry's ears pricked up when he heard that. The little things give you pleasure, Meghan? Really? My ears are pricking up at that suggestion. Then she presents a selection of donut rings that are glazed in cream. Did you see that segment? I thought it was actually rather vulgar. Rather a vulgar display of glazed creamy donut rings. I didn't care to see it, and I felt an undercurrent of vulgarity. And I noticed actually when she was chatting away with this Roy, this chef Roy, she behaves quite differently, doesn't she, with the straight guy in the room. The eyes were fixed and the charm overload is emanating and frothing up to the max. Oh, the fix of the eyes. Oh, yes, and he was loving it. I've got so many Korean friends. Yes, she actually said that. Well done, Meghan. What do you want? A round of applause. Well done. Korea are delighted to know that the Korea girl has a friend in them. Yes, she becomes a bit more manic in this episode and as the series progresses. They turn to the subject of MSG, monosodium glutamate, which is interesting for me. I didn't know about all of this. Well, apparently, historically, criticism of MSGs, which are used in Asian food, Korean food, Chinese food, was apparently racist, Roy tells us. And Meghan all of a sudden adopts serious face, it's time for serious face, and a pout and concerned eyes. He said the R word, so I've got to do serious pout eyes. But of course, we soon have more jaunty soul music to distract us from the tedium of all of this, which again fails. But she observes what's going on for most of this episode. She doesn't do much. It's Roy that does the instruction. She just sort of observes and fixes him with glares and then flitters and flirts. Episode 4 is called Love is in the Details. Delphi's coming! Delphi's coming over. Oh, we love Delphi the dolphin. And she begins teaching us how to make tea. For the uninitiated, she tells us, you pick up the tea and you place it in water. That's how it's made, which is a revelation, isn't it? Absolutely ingenious. Pass it on to ancient China. They'll be grateful. But this water is special water. It is to be sun-warmed. You leave it out in the sunshine for several hours, or a few days in this case, because it was a cold day, so leaving it outside didn't do much apart from attract the bees and the flies. Delphi is, of course, married to the handsome friend of Harry's, his good friend, Nacho. Now, I've been pronouncing this wrong. Well, I call him Cheesy Nachos anyway, don't I, my dears? But apparently it's not Nacho Figueras. I should know better. She pronounced it, what was it? Ficara. I'm not going to attempt it, actually, but she educated me. And she teaches the statuesque Delphi how to make focaccia. Apparently Delphi's wanted to learn how to make focaccia for years, for ages. Meghan tells us she's been pining, wanting to make focaccia. Apparently she'd never heard of Google or a Nigella Lawson cookbook. And they compare notes on their guys, or their boys, as Meghan tells us. Our boys are just so wonderful. But wouldn't you love swapping Harry out for old cheesy nachos? Just for a night or two, Meghan. Wouldn't you love a bit of that? Yes, you would. And so would Harry, to be quite honest. But Meghan's been hiding a secret. She speaks Argentinian Spanish. And Delphi didn't know. No, she didn't know. Delphi, how could you not know? Meghan is wonderful. Well versed in the art of the Argentine. She obviously wasn't aware about Meghan's former life as an envoy in Argentina, as a special ambassador, as the Evita Peron of her day. Actually, to give credit where credit's due, Meghan did make it clear, actually, in this episode. She said that she was interning at the US Embassy. She admits that she was there photocopying and faxing as an intern, and not as the Grand Ambassador that she's previously intimated. Then it was time to learn how to make lavender towels. And then they had a focaccia feast with the bread. And did you notice that the gal appropriates cultures like she appropriates husbands throughout the entire 8 episodes? Appropriating culture, Meghan. Very disrespectful. Not at all woke. And actually, I think it's subconscious bias. Yes, you're using your white privilege, aren't you? Oh, I forgot, you're 43% Nigerian. Yeah, okay. I will say, also in their favour, that this appeared to be a rather charming friendship, one of several displayed in the programme. What they're showing us seemed authentic in this case, and genuinely intimate and warm. I do acknowledge that with some of these friendships. Episode 5 was called Surprise and Delight, and I was not surprised at all, and certainly wasn't delighted, to find that Abby and Kelly and the girls were coming over, and she was going to tell us all about the flower market. And she tells us a secret, and that is that Lily, little Princess Lilibet, would love the pink flowers. Oh, she loves pink, apparently. Well, that's gender stereotyping, isn't it? How have you been raising these children? Blue for a boy and pink for a girl. Oh, I didn't know that went down in Montecito. Terrible. They'll be calling her Lily the Pink next. And then we have a lesson on how to arrange flowers. And Meghan tells us that she learned all of this during her baby shower for Archie. They all took lessons on how to arrange flowers. And then she gets her fish out for the girls. And they all cackle away like the witches of Eastwick with beachy waves. The bitches of the East Coast, more like, I suppose. But they've got enough beachy waves between them to trigger a tsunami. Did you notice that? Oh, those beachy waves. Archie caught a trout. Then it is on to what will go down in history as the cookery show that had Fanny Craddock turning in her grave how to style crudités. She loves her crudités. The cruder the better. She says, I never let my guests arrive without having something on the table. Myself. Myself. No, not myself. Actually, it was a bowl of shop-bought hummus surrounded by chopped vegetables and her beloved edible flowers. Oh, she's obsessed with those edible flowers, isn't she, my dear? I bet she sprinkles them all over her edible flower. H is a great cook, she also tells us, and I sense a bit of jealousy about the way that he does his scrambled eggs. Scrambled Megs. And we'll rush along now throughout the last few episodes. Episode 6 was called The Juice is Worth the Squeeze. And she was hosting a game night and she was playing Mahjong, the game Mahjong. So again, appropriating cultures all over the place. Chopping plantain. Oh, let me chop the plantain for my picnic. And this time the star of the show was Chef Ramon with his Mexican cuisine. Well, she could have asked her father for some of that, couldn't she? Over the border. But that was dull. It was all Chef Ramon and Mahjong. Episode 7 was called Elevating the Everyday. And Vicky's coming over this time. Where's Vicky? Sicky Vicky. And they're making a harvest basket. Another one of my specialities that she's pilfered. She tells us this twice, by the way. If you watched it, you might have noticed 2 minutes apart, she said exactly the same thing. Vicky's coming over and we're making a harvest basket. Is she doing these thoughtful things, by the way, because love is in the detail, as she tells us, or is it because she is absolutely and hopelessly addicted to praise? Go figure. Vicky, by the way, is the co-founder of a skincare line. And she spent several minutes plonking fruit and vegetables and a few leaves into a basket, as if she was Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel. And she was so busy with it that she forgot that her creamer was bubbling in the pan behind her. And the director shouted out, check the burner, oh lordy. Well, actually, I think that he missed a bit of a trick there, because he took away from the possibly natural side of the situation. Do you understand? It would have been more fun and more interesting to see it bubble up and to see the Duchess respond to an emergency situation in the kitchen. Well, he ruined it by telling her what was happening. You don't interrupt wild creatures in nature for a documentary, do you? Otherwise, you are feeding us sophistry. That's certainly a meal that she can conjure up. And then it was time to make a mask for the face, a polishing mask made with the ingredients from nature. Well, I'll be honest with you, my dears, I don't believe in all of that crap about shoving honey and yogurt and grains and seeds and herbs on your face and rubbing it all in and hoping for success. Perhaps it's worked for some of you. Many people swear by it, but all it's ever done for me is to bring me out in a rash. I remember I used to be obsessed with an exfoliant made of ground apricot kernels, and it used to bring my skin up in the most fabulous glow. It really did. It worked fabulously, but the next morning it would be acne and pustules and redness and all kinds of nasties. So that certainly put me off. I've never had success with all of that shit. Episode 8 is called Feels Like Home. Oh, that was the last episode, thankfully. Yes, I did watch every minute of this. Every minute of the series. I felt that I had to, although I did put the last few episodes on speed and watch them at double speed or whatever it is. Feels Like Home. She gave some advice on gift wrapping, which actually I found a little bit useful. I'm useless at wrapping presents. I hate wrapping presents. It's the worst thing in the world. It makes me so upset. But I must remember now, Meghan tells me, use double-sided tape and a little instrument to smooth down the side. So that was quite useful. And this time she was meeting up for the first time, I believe, if I heard correctly, with Alice Waters, chef and restaurateur. And by the way, Meghan also told us that even if you've only got a little, I'm paraphrasing, if you've only got a pokey little flat in London, or if you've got a small apartment in the city, then you can also have some small piece of this wonderfulness that I'm showing you, even in your windowsill, if you've only got a windowsill. Just plant something, she tells us. Not condescending at all, not patronising at all. Thank you, Princess, thank you so much from we, the paupers and peasants and poor people of the kingdom. Thank you. Thank you for giving us your permission. We will have fun watering our little window box out of our tiny little pokey flat or our mobile home. Thank you, Princess. We salute you. Then Meghan collects her farm-fresh eggs to show them to Alice. She probably laid them herself. These eggs were collected from Archie's chick in. Do you get it? Do you get it? Archie's chicken. Oh, cluck, cluck, cluck. Well, she picks up these eggs, and I have to say they look gorgeous and beautiful. But I've looked after hens. I told you before about the absolutely petrifying hens and chickens that I looked after for a week or two. And I had to collect their eggs every day, and I can tell you that they were covered in feathers and shit every time. They were absolutely disgusting. Mucus and matter, and the stench of them, awful. Well, Meghan's chickens and hens don't do that. They are absolutely immaculate in every orifice, and they come out gleaming like little orbs of yolky goodness. And as for Alice, she tells us that she'd never even seen a yolk that colour. Pays Meghan the compliment, I've never seen a yolk that colour. Well, let me introduce you to the colour yellow, Alice. Alice's enthusiasm, by the way, did you notice this? It waned. It actually waned as it became very clear that Meghan had actually invited her onto the show to show Alice how things are done. Yes, ultimately, as much as she kept praising Alice and how she's learning from Alice, no, she wanted to show Alice how she does things and how adept and deft and dexterous she is. And she swam through the rivers of Alice's praise for her. And I noticed Alice becoming weary as the segment went on, because there was so much warmth from Alice as she came into the scene, and she seemed like this very lovely lady who adored Meghan, and she was really, I don't know anything about her, by the way. She's probably really famous in America. I know nothing about this woman. She might be absolutely lovely, but I noticed a crack in her perma grin, her perma smile, as well as a crack in the eggs. The veneer diminished, and to be honest, I wasn't sold on her, as lovely as she seemed when she first came into the mix. Keeping up all of that warmth must be absolutely exhausting, and I'm afraid that she dropped the act after a few minutes. And Meghan says, this tastes like home. I've missed California. Well, you've been in California for the past 5 years. What is it? Something like that? You've been there for the last few years. So how could you miss it? Stop pretending you've been dragged away to the kingdom and held here hostage. You soon escaped back to your homeland, didn't you, and to Hollywood. You were back there as soon as you possibly could. You had no intention of staying out here for the rest of your days, did you? None whatsoever. And then it's more, oh no, first of all, she's throwing a party, and she tells us Doria's going to be there and my lovely husband. She can't just say Harry. She can't just say my husband. It has to be my lovely husband. And that's when you know that she hates him. And then it's more edible flowers. Again, edible flowers, edible flowers, edible flowers. Well, Harry doesn't care about the edible flowers. The only edible flower that he's ever been interested in was yours. And he's probably had enough of that by now, my dear. Quite enough of that dish that you served up. But these flower cookies that she'd been serving up, they look pretty tasty, I'll give her that. They look pretty with the edible flowers scattered on them like confetti. But they will taste like a meadow, and they will taste like confetti. That's the trouble. All style and no substance. Nobody wants to munch on confetti. But we've had to put up with munching on the confetti of your marriage for the past few years, haven't we, since you became the Duchess of Sussex? And now we have to put up with this debasing of our institution, with this vulgar parade. But, oh, isn't it delightful and isn't it satisfying to see it utterly derided for the stupid inanity that it is? Surely one of the worst shows ever made. That's what they can do with the Duchess of Sussex and all this money and all the beautiful locations in the world. That is what they offer us. Where is talent? Where is a new idea? Where is some ingenuity? Even some entertaining silliness. I wouldn't mind if it was entertaining. I wouldn't mind if it was dreadful and entertaining. You know, I'd prefer that. Give me some high camp catastrophes or calamities. But just ball-achingly dull dross, dressed up as Nigella in drag, Nutella Narkle. No, thank you, my dear. I've had more than my fill. But I enjoyed sharing my reaction with you, and I hope that you enjoyed hearing it. Thank you for dropping by. I'll see you next time, my dears. My tip jar, if you enjoyed my fruity thoughts, is in the description box, and I thank you most sincerely. Do leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. Ta-ra, my dears. Take care and toodle pip.